Hello, my name is Freya Olson. I'm a postdoc with the Virginia Tech Center for Ecosystem Forecasting. And in this VERA Forecasting Challenge tutorial, we're going to talk about how to set up your R environment so that you can complete the VERA Forecasting tutorial. Within this video, I'm going to show you how to navigate to the tutorial repository. We're going to talk about how to fork and clone the tutorial materials, and then how to bring those materials locally into your RStudio environment. There are a couple of prerequisites before you get started with this. The first is you're going to need an installation of R and RStudio. You're going to need an R version of 4.1 or higher for a couple of the packages that we're going to use. You're also going to need Git installed and configured locally on your computer. The happy Git with R materials are a great starting point if you're learning how to use Git and GitHub. And also you're going to need a GitHub account. There's information at each of these links if you need help at any of these steps. Once you complete these prerequisites, we can get started with the tutorial. So first things first is you're going to need to navigate to the tutorial materials GitHub repository, which is hosted on the LTREB reservoirs environment. Once you've navigated to this GitHub repository, you can have a look at what materials are available. So there's the different directories listed here. There's a README file that talks you through what's involved in the tutorial, as well as the information I'm going to share with you now. If you want to follow along later, there's more information here. So the first thing we're going to do is what's called a fork. And this generates a copy of the materials in the VERA forecast example repository on the LTREB organization and puts them into your own organization so that you can make edits and follow along with the tutorial in your own space. So the first thing you're going to do is find this fork button in the top right corner. When you click it, you'll want to create a new fork. In here, you can change the repository name if you like, change the owner if you have multiple organizations, but you want to make sure that you're listed here in some capacity. Make sure this main branch is selected and then click the green button that says Create Fork. This might take a few moments depending on your internet connection and things. So this looks almost exactly the same as we had before, but now instead of being on the LTREB, you can see this is now listed under my organization up here. But the materials are exactly the same. So the next step is we have it on GitHub. The next step is to bring it locally into our own RStudio environment. And so the first thing I want you to do is open an RStudio instance. So at the moment, this is just my RStudio window as I opened it. There's currently no project listed, but we're going to use the RStudio project interface to bring those materials locally. So if you go back to your GitHub window, you're going to use this green code button in the top right. Click on that and then use this copy to clipboard button to copy the HTTPS link here. Go back to your R window. We're going to start a new project, either up here or using the file button. And we're going to use version control, clone from a Git repository, and then we're going to paste that URL that we just got from GitHub into here. This will automatically populate this project directory name, but again, you can change this if you'd like, and make sure this is being put onto a relevant subdirectory on your computer. Click Create Project. This might take a few minutes, again, depending on your internet connection. And then you'll notice a couple of things. All those materials from GitHub will be present in your Files window. We should also be in a VERA forecast example project based on this project file. And so now we can start to interact with the materials in RStudio, make changes. You can commit them to your local Git and push them back to GitHub if you have Git configured appropriately, and start to get a feel for the forecasting workflow within the tutorial. So before we get started with the tutorial, we're just going to make sure our environment is ready. So the last thing I'm asking you to do is open the tutorial, open the R Markdown document. And within here, there's some information about the tutorial overall, the background to the challenge and things. But there's also a list of packages that you're going to need to work through the tutorial materials. So if a couple of these are things you might already have if you work in RStudio regularly. Remotes is going to be important in a second. Tidyverse, a common collection of packages that many people use. Lubridate is a package for working with dates and times that's really useful. And the here package is just really helpful for organizing your workflow and like figuring out which directory you're in and things like that. So we're going to use the remotes package. If you don't have that installed already, you can go ahead and install that. And we're going to use the function in remotes called install GitHub that's going to install this VERA forecast helpers package that's been developed specifically for the VERA forecasting challenge to help participants with a couple of steps to just make things easier, really. So with the submission step, there's a function in there to check your forecast format to make sure you have all the correct columns and things like that. So we're going to go ahead and install that one. This is going to download it from the GitHub repository. Potentially, you might need to update some packages that are dependencies within that package. Might take a minute or so, but it should be good now that that's finished. It's always a good idea when you've installed new packages to restart R. So we've navigated to the tutorial repository. We've forked and cloned the tutorial materials into our own GitHub and into a local RStudio instance. And we've started that new RStudio project and installed all the relevant packages. In the next video, I'm going to talk about a simple forecasting workflow, and we can follow along with an R Markdown document.